If there is one takeaway that one can make from the Depp Heard trial, it is that the only good victim is a dead one. While we currently look back on cases with a certain sense of tragedy, prior to their deaths, these women have often been treated with undeniable bias and suspicion. It's easy to call out their mistreatment post-mortem, but in order to prevent tragedies, we must be proactive and make an effort to listen to survivors and not to corpses. Women are vilified and treated with suspicion whenever they speak about their abuse, while men are protected and coddled, even when their wrongdoing is evident. This is especially true for the Me Too movement, which received a myriad of support in its early days, but has recently faced vocal opposition as many criticize victims because of a lack of proof, and because of a belief that the mostly upper-class who are being accused due to a desire for money, fame, or personal gain. Often, supporters argue that the Me Too movement have gone too far, and that the women speaking out are putting innocent men in jail. But this is false. Statistics show us that the number of accused in the context of sexual harassment cases who were actually convicted was actually negligible. So the question remains, why are women's stories of abuse not given enough importance? Why do we ignore them until after they are dead? The amount of sympathy a victim receives is directly related to how well their case relates to certain rape myths. The concept of rape myths, such as the belief that a woman's clothing may place her at a certain risk, that it isn't rape without violence, that it only happens in dark alleyways and with strangers, and so on. The definition of rape is often misunderstood, even with the recent push to ensure that rape is understood to be more than violence, but instead to encompass any sexual content that is unwanted or coerced. This so-called broadening of the definition has caused many to reconsider their own experiences as both victim and victimizer, and it is an uncomfortable place to be in. No one wants to consider whether they are the bad guy, or if they were once taken advantage of, because that illustrates a sense of immorality and powerlessness respectively. Research has documented that men's engagement in sexual violence is predicted by rape myth acceptance, and it should come as no surprise that even progressive people tend to accept these rape myths and become extremely doubtful regarding any such incident if the woman appears to be sexually active and open. The continuation of these myths leads to a distillation of victimhood, as it generalizes the experience of rape and abuse into black and white, creating the perfect victim and an imperfect victim, another version of the whore and Madonna complex. As stated in Banjari's analysis of public sympathy in India, the perfect rape victim is an individual who has been brutally tortured apart from being raped, and probably have been subjected to death due to the same as well. On the other hand, an imperfect rape victim is an adult woman, sexually active, taking charge of her own life, enjoys her drinks, and stays outside till late at night. Research has found that 1/3 of Britons said it would not be rape if there was no sexual violence committed. Another study from India found that it is easier to show sympathy for a rape victim who's been assaulted by a complete stranger, as she had nothing to do in that case, and fits the definition of the archetypal antisocial crime. But if the perpetrator has been your intimate partner or your romantic interest, it is believed that the girl surely must have misled the man in the process, and hence these accounts, according to the study, are mostly disregarded or denied completely. As a result, we create a hierarchy of rape cases based on their brutality and use of physical violence, which places victims that have died as being the most perfect and least reproachable, though certainly not free from criticism. See, for example, Princess Diana, who was chased by the media prior to her death and accused of being a sex fiend, amongst other accusations. Diana was chosen to be essentially a broodmare, an attractive virgin who would be a suitable mother for a royal heir. Buckingham Palace thought that it would be an easy task to manipulate and control such a young and naive woman, and Prince Charles was happy that he could carry on his long-standing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, a relationship that he did not have the guts to publicly choose. From the beginning, Diana's story was no fairy tale romance. She was treated within the royal family as someone who did not matter, who was only of value as a breeding machine and publicity tool. Her response to being so marginalized and undervalued and to having so little control over her own life was self-harm. She developed bulimia and injured herself through falling downstairs. Self-harm is a common coping mechanism used by women when they are made to feel powerless and worthless. It was not until after her death that she was seen with a sympathetic view by both the media and the greater public. Her death, the indignity and avoidability of it, finally granted her the freedom to be viewed only in retrospective. The story had ended, and like all good tragedies, we are transfixed by its inevitability. It makes it easy to come to the conclusion that there was no other way out. This is the only way it could ever end. Why did it take her death for the nature of her marriage and life to be questioned? The first time Diana and Charles met was when she was 16 to his 28 years old. Though they did not start officially dating until she was 18, that large age gap and likely grooming that took place behind the scenes often remains undiscussed. Gabby Petito is a great example of a modern tragedy with far greater parallels to the abuse Amber Heard recently recounted at her trial. Petito's case made national headlines as she was a part of the van life community, and her disappearance with her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, quickly caught the attention of her fans. Her murder was preventable, as there was evidence of domestic abuse prior to her disappearance while the couple was in Utah. Before police pulled Laundrie and Petito over, callers reported that the couple fought and that Laundrie locked her out of the car and slapped her. Others said that Petito struck her fiancé. However, when police spoke to the couple, they saw a distraught Petito and her calm fiancé. Petito took responsibility for the fight and explained Laundrie's scratches. The police determined Petito was clearly the aggressor and also indicated that she obviously had mental health issues since she couldn't stop crying. But multiple experts who interact with victims of domestic violence have expressed that their judgments were rash and incorrect. They said the biggest red flag was when Petito took the blame and her overall disposition. She felt rightfully upset after fighting with her partner. She shouldered responsibility even though eyewitness reports stated Laundrie was also violent. Police ignored obvious signs of distress and reports made by callers and instead listened to the man who fled following his fiancé's disappearance. If she had survived long enough to reach out for help, it is likely that she wouldn't have received help from police. Mental illness condemns women to be labeled as untrustworthy liars, especially when an understandable reaction to stress and abuse is contrasted with her abuser's calmness. It's an all too common response from outsiders looking in on abuse victims, be it the police who respond or general society at large. It all stems from our tendency to victim blame, to constantly think of other avenues of escape, and to criticize them when they don't take these imagined escape routes. Sometimes, like when someone is the victim of a crime, we victim blame them because we like to believe that what happened was preventable. We tell people they wouldn't have been attacked in the street if they weren't walking alone, even if we'd never criticized them for walking alone otherwise, as if the attack was inevitable. It's easy to see things as inevitable in hindsight by scrutinizing the victim's behavior, but the reality is that their behavior was probably no different from our own, and the same thing could happen to us. In other words, we victim blame to protect ourselves from the weight of knowing that it could be us, just as easily. It makes it difficult to ever find a perfect victim because there are none. People are flawed. It is far easier to view it as a closed story and to judge the characters within it kindly for not knowing what was in it. And thus, we don't listen until they're dead. And the only good victim is a dead one. This, dear viewers, is where we part. This topic is one that's just very interesting to me, particularly because, like I've said before, I work in a rape shelter. I've heard a lot of different stories, and it's really, really easy to question things from the outside in, but when you're in the middle of things, it's not nearly as easy as it may seem. And I feel like, especially with media, the stories come out as, oh, well, she could have just left. Oh, well, she could have just, stopped then and there. Could have just called the police the first time. And it's never as simple as it comes out to be. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, concerns, questions, whatever the hell, leave them in the comments down below. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.